Hello, everyone. I'm Dijon,
And I'm Aiara.
and welcome to the Mustardcast, the podcast about the art of storytelling and how it's used across different mediums. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see our channel grow, and to click the notification bell so that you're notified when we post. As usual, we'll start with media we're consuming. Aiara, you can start.
Okay. So first things first, I finished through my replaythrough of Clock Tower. That was really fun. Forgot how tense that game can be, but it at the same time it made me more excited for the remake because some of the mechanics are kind of trash. Because it's an old game. The sprint system sucks. I hate it. Uh Started playing the two Game Boy Color Zelda games, Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons again because they just got put on Nintendo Switch Online, and I've always really enjoyed those. Never got to do a linked game though, so that's my aim this go around. Trying to track down a copy of Their Eyes Were Watching God to reread that book. Because a friend of mine was like, "We should reread it together," and I was like, "Bet." And so now I'm trying to track down a copy of that. I thought I had one, I did not, so that's fun. And then caught up with My Adventures with Superman. And yeah, but I'll talk more about that during that section.
You're fully caught up.
Not fully. I've got like two more episodes until I'm fully caught up,
Okay.
including the one that just came out.
All right. That's caught up enough to have a good
Yeah.
discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, catching up on Spy Family. Been rewatching that because a reaction YouTube channel I watched, Blind Wave, started watching it. So I was like, you know what, it's time for me to finally start watching Spy Family again. Still watching Demon Slayer. I tried to watch an episode last night, but I was tired, so I fell asleep on it. So I'm gonna have to rewind a little bit of that episode and try to watch some more of that. Harley Quinn season 4 is still airing, so still checking that out. I'm fully caught up with My Adventure with Superman. We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
Finished RWBY Volume 9.
Ooh.
And it was good. I'll talk about that in a little bit. And
Oh,
I
okay.
also watched the Justice League RWBY crossover movie.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yes, it's a thing. It's a well, I've been talking about the comic, the current
Yeah.
comic, which is a RWBY Cross DC is what it's called, and the first one is RWBY Cross Justice League. And honestly, it's strange. The movie it's an alright movie. It suffers from some of the writing problems that I'm talking about with RWBY. Where like I don't know, Team RWBY just always feels like they need to be right, and you can tell they're trying to write them as like teenagers, but it gets to a point to where it's like when are they going to learn a lesson? Which they do learn a lesson in Volume 9, which I'll talk about later, which I like a lot.
Oh wow.
But in this movie, it takes place like in between, like I think Volume 8 and 9 or something like that, or like Volume 8 and 7. So they haven't learned a lesson yet, so they're still being little annoying teenagers, and it's just not it's so annoying. And the movie's weird because they have to Justice League get turned into teenagers when they get sent to the RWBY world, which is
Uh-huh.
strange. And they have,
That is really weird.
and like the modern, some of the modern Justice League teams, Cyborg was on the team, and he's a founding member, which I hate. Just Cyborg being a founding member, because it does two things that I don't like. It removes his history of the Teen Titans, which is very important to his character, because
Right.
that is where he came from. That's the story he was created for, and he has very like his a lot about his character comes from that comic and those his interactions with that team. So erasing that history from him removes a lot from his character. And also, he becomes a founding member in place of one of the original founding members, Martian Manhunter, who is already a very underrepresented character, despite
Right.
his relative fame as a character. So I don't mind Cyborg eventually joining Justice League, but being a founding member, I hate it so much. And
That's real. That's real.
it sparks a problem in this movie where at some point he's like yelling at Team RWBY about them being kids, and they're like, well, you've been turned into kids now too. And I'm like, I feel like this was an interesting time for them, for this to be a version of Cyborg who was a Teen Titan and then joined the Justice League, so that when he's a teenager right now, he's the only person on the Justice League who was actually a superhero when he was a teenager before. So he
Right.
should be adjusting better than the rest of the Justice League. That you can you can really tell that the people writing this are kind of surface level comic book readers, and
Uh
that they're kind of just touching the surface of these characters and aren't really going deep with them. And also, it's weird because they're like treating the Team RWBY like kids when they come from a universe where teenagers being superhero is the norm.
right.
Literally, almost every single one of them in that movie have sidekicks.
Mm.
because it's the Justice League. Superman's there. He has Supergirl, who became a superhero when she was a teenager. You know,
Right.
the mini Robins, the several Wonder Girls. It's yeah,
Yeah.
it's an alright movie. This is only part one though, and part two is gonna like be Ruby going to the Justice League universe. And there's been
Mm.
screenshots of it, and Wonder Woman kind of looks like a sex doll in the Ruby art style.
Oh
It's
no.
unfortunate because Ruby has a fun art style, but
It
the
does.
way they've translated the DC characters to their art style isn't great.
Mm.
It,
Yikes.
I'm always rooting for this team to do well. It just they're still
Sometimes, yeah.
they're still a relatively smaller team, so it makes sense that not everything they make is going to be pitch perfect. But
Yeah, that
yeah,
makes sense.
I also watched Ip Man 3 last night, which was a good time.
Hmm.
I saw Blue Beetle. Talk about that
Ooh,
later, and also saw Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part One. Also going to talk about that in the movie section. But
nice, nice.
he also
All this talk of oh, go ahead.
what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say all this talk about the Justice League makes me want to watch Justice League Unlimited again. I
Oh,
love that show.
Justice League is so good. I actually been randomly seeing a bunch of clips from the Justice League action cartoon, and it's on Netflix. So I was like, I'm gonna check that out because it looks good.
Hmm.
I'm gonna check that out. But yeah, moving on to animation. I'll start with Bleach. So of course I don't want to spoil anything. So I can't
Right.
say too much, but Studio Pierrot is killing it. And Shiro Sagisu, he clearly loves R&B because it plays at the end during an epic moment last episode, and that same song plays again at the end of the most recent episode, and it's so good.
Oh.
He clearly just loves R&B and black music in general. Yeah. Last episode, honestly, both of these episodes, every episode this season has been proving why Bleach is goated, why Bleach is one of the greatest of all time, why it's my personal favorite. And
Oh, snap.
there are so many more epic moments to come, and I'm excited. And I only have I think 10 chapters left in my reread of the manga. I'm gonna have to finish that eventually. Um,
Hmm.
but there are also a few canon light novels that I hope get adapted into OVAs.
Ooh,
I think one of them, or maybe a couple of them, could be adapted in OVAs. But one of them I think should definitely be a movie because
right.
it's much longer than the rest.
Hmm.
Still watching Zom 100. So something in the last episode very interesting happened. The main character decides to try and become a superhero that saves people from zombies, and
Hmm.
does so by going to an aquarium and finding a shark resistant wetsuit to use as a costume,
Uh-huh.
and essentially dresses like a Super Sentai. And I didn't know that was a thing, that there were shark resistance. So obviously the pressure of the bite will still crush your bones, but
Right.
the teeth can't pierce it. So I was like, that's actually really smart in a zombie
It
apocalypse
is. It
to wear
is.
that, because the bites are gonna hurt, but they're not gonna pierce, so you're not gonna turn, and it'll make it easier to survive.
Right.
So it was just a really smart thing that I didn't know was even an option. But yeah, this show I've been enjoying so far. But yeah, Fiona and Cake. There was another trailer. Did you get a chance to check that out?
I did.
Yeah. It releases October 31st, and
Yay.
we see even more glimpses of characters from Adventure Time, including an adult Finn.
Ooh,
So there's
yes.
definitely some multiverse shenanigans happening, and it seems like Fiona and Cake will be a lot more episodic than Adventure Time was, which was kind of more like anthology. Like it all took place in
Mm.
the same world sometimes. Sometimes it didn't, but for the most part, it all took place in the same world and continuity. There was a continuity and a through line, but they were sporadic stuff happening. There was just sporadic things
Right.
happening each 15-minute segment.
Yeah.
But Fiona and Cake seems like it's going to be a much more traditional, TV show in the way that they tell its story.
Ooh, nice, nice.
But also, coincidentally, it comes out the same day as the live action One Piece and the DLC for Shredder's Revenge, and I'm like, a lot of things is happening on August 31st. Why is this day so special?
Right. They saw Barbenheimer and it's like, oh, let's release everything on the same day now because it's good press. But it's like that's not gonna work. It's not always gonna work. It's a dangerous gamble.
Yeah. There was also a trailer for the Scott Pilgrim animated series on Netflix, which is releasing November 17th. It's animated by Science Saru, who animated Devilman Crybaby, Devilman Crybaby on Netflix. And it will have the entirety of the original cast from the movie back voicing these characters. And someone on Twitter, Deboyu, pointed out just how wild of an achievement this show is. They said that
Hmm.
it has the director of the film producing the entire cast of voices from that movie and a genuine anime studio attached, and is written by the creator. And it has the band from the game making the music.
The music, yeah, you just don't see stuff like
It's a
that ever.
combination of every medium that this story has touched all together. The comic, the movie, the game, all of it. It's
Right.
great.
Mm.
I'm so excited for this. You know,
Same, same.
this is gonna be the most like what I'm thinking about. I want to say, I guess, comic accurate adaptation of the comic.
Yeah.
And there's because you know the movie, because it's a movie, it had to cut some things out. It was also made before the book was even finished, so
Right.
they kind of had to interpret what the ending was based on what they heard from the writer. But now they'd be able to
Hmm.
just tell the full story.
Right. It's a good intro to the comics for people who have like maybe only watched the movie or only played the game. It's a good
Yeah,
intro. Yeah.
and you know, there's a little bit of discourse online of people somehow just realizing that Scott isn't a good person, and that because the
I was
thing
about to
is,
bring that up.
the comic opens like this, so does the movie, and I guarantee you, so will the cartoon. It opens with Scott Pilgrim is dating a 17-year-old, and then shortly afterwards, like barely afterwards, they let you know Scott is 23 years old. From the beginning, they're letting you know Scott is a horrible person.
I was about to say, yeah, like Martin Lee O'Malley pulls no punches. We know that Scott is terrible, and I cannot wait for it to come out and people on Twitter to be like, "Oh, Scott Pilgrim is a horrible person," a thread, and it's like, no, we know,
It's not
we
being
know.
hidden. This isn't just for some reason a lot, and naturally a lot of horrible people identify with him because they're also horrible. So
Well,
like
people, right?
no one's saying Scott's a good person. Like never in Scott Pilgrim are they trying to paint him as a good person. They're painting him as a
Right.
bad person who's slowly learning how to not even get better, but at the end begin the process of getting better.
Y- Right. It's like it's that thing of not everyone that's a protagonist is like a good person.
Exactly.
And I wish people had more like media literacy with media that does that cuz you know when they think protagonists, positives, yada yada yada. Me personally, I've always been a fan of protagonists that are just like horrible people. Horrible because it lets them foil off the rest of the cast in such an interesting way that it's like it makes stories more interesting to me in my opinion because it's like this person's horrible but are they as horrible as this person and it's like this whole dynamic that gets set up anyway. Scott Pilgrim's a bad person, don't idolize him, it's a red flag.
Yeah. Um yeah, I agree. Definitely 100%. I'm very excited for this. Um
Same.
So I finished up RWBY Volume 9, and you know, as I was watching it, I began to realize that I was making the same mistake with RWBY that I did with Bleach a long time ago. And I only corrected it a few years ago because of this podcast, the first time I ever talked about Bleach on a podcast.
Right.
Which was I've let a lot of the hate the series gets, combined with a few of the writing decisions I don't agree with, taint my view of it. And watching Volume 9, I'm reminded of like what makes RWBY so great and why I enjoyed so much. Because this season
Hmm.
is really good. Team RWBY and Jean deal with the consequences of their actions finally. RWBY is having a crisis of conscience after the
Hmm.
events of Volume 8, and it kind of solves a problem many people have with the show, which is Team RWBY often thinks that they know better than the trained professionals around them, and it always felt like the writers were struggling to actually make us agree with some of the decisions that the main characters were making. Um, well, in this volume, RWBY is no longer sure if you know they have what it takes to get the job done after making several huge mistakes in the last season.
Right.
And Jean feels like he can't protect anyone after a horrible decision he made in Volume 8. And ultimately, they learn that they aren't perfect or always right and will make mistakes. But what's most important is to learn from them and to not beat themselves up about it. All of
Right.
that should have been one sentence. That's why I was confused. Um, yeah, this type of character growth I've been wanting to see in RWBY for a very long time. And
Hmm.
this season was about acceptance of like feelings, acceptance of mistakes, and of oneself. And you know, I held off on watching the season for so long because of the negativity surrounding the series online.
Hmm.
But sometimes you got to just enjoy something for what it is and not
Yeah.
hyper fixate on its flaws. And you know, I
Yeah.
hope that RWBY gets Volume 10 and eventually, you know, actually is able to finish its story, which I feel like they could do within the next couple seasons. It feels like they're wrapping up towards the end, like Volume 11.
Yeah.
If they get there, will probably be the end. If not, Volume 10.
Hmm.
But yeah. So we'll move on to My Adventures with Superman. So
Yippee!
you said that the only episodes you haven't seen are the last two. So
Yes.
yeah, we're just gonna start from where we left off. Since we have to push back our discussion on the show twice now, I've accumulated a lot of notes. So we're gonna start with episode 4, and I'm going to start off a bit negative, but only because we've had to push it back so far. So it'll get positive towards the end, maybe. Not that I don't like the show. I like the show a lot. I want to make that clear off top. There's just flaws that I've been wanting to talk about for a while, but we just had to push it back so much that it's going to start off on a negative note. So, continuing our discussion on how My Adventures with Superman makes strange changes to the villains, in episode 4, they combined 2 villains in a way that I'm not a fan of. So, Professor Ivo is a genius whose claim to fame is creating a robot called a Mazo that can copy the skills and powers of any superhero or villain, just anybody with powers. And Parasite is a character that has no association with Ivo whatsoever, who gets turned into a purple monster with an insatiable hunger for energy of any kind and gets stronger the more of it he consumes. Now, Ivo being a tech billionaire is a very interesting take on the character, but I think they jumped the gun with his storyline, to be honest. I feel like he should have either been kicked out of the company, then builds the suit to get revenge, or builds the suit and tests it on humans and then gets kicked out because of that, and arrested, of course. Also, Parasite's suit should have either been saved for the actual Parasite, like Ivo could have still made it but had someone else test it, or it should have just been called the Amazo suit. It's so weird. Like, it was like, I've seen people post it, like, they're like, okay, his Dr. Ivo, all of his tech is called a Mazo because, that's his thing. He made a robot called a Mazo that's really strong. So when you hear that he's making this mech, you're like, okay, well, obviously it's just going to be a Mazo, but he's wiring it instead of it being a separate robot. And then when he comes out and it's Parasite, you're like, huh? This guy is literally known for making a very specific robot. Why did you give him a mech suit that was a different character who's never even been a robot? It's such a weird decision. Truly, it feels like they don't know a lot about Superman's villains. And that they know a lot about Superman, they know a lot about Lois and Jimmy, and they care more about those characters than they do the villains, honestly. It feels that way. And that...
Ooh, that's scary.
But yeah, the design of Parasite's suit is really cool, though. Like I said, if it was used for anybody other than Ivo, I would love it so much more because the design is great. It looks like a EVA unit from Neon Genesis Evangelion, and pretty sure that's on purpose. And in episode 5, we see Deathstroke, and I think a lot of people are like talking trash about his costume. I think he looks fine. I think Deathstroke looks cool. But seeing both of those designs though makes me wonder, like, why does Livewire and Silver Banshee look so bad compared to their comic book counterparts? When you clearly can make very interesting takes on these characters that still have elements of, their comic book counterparts. It feels, everything about this show I see that they have the potential, but they're squandering it. But again, like I said, it's gonna start really negative. I promise I'm gonna get positive. But yeah, at the end of episode 4, Lois discovers that Clark is Superman, and I didn't expect that to happen this early.
Yeah, same.
But it created some fun moments in the next episode of her trying to get him to confess, and he not even dodging the questions, him literally just not knowing that that's what she's trying to do.
Oh, Clark, bless his heart.
Which also led to some controversy online.
I saw that.
In reaction to Clark saving her and confirming he's Superman, some people believe that she's completely in the wrong and using it as an excuse to hate her. The conflict of her being mad at him for lying is definitely blown way out of proportion for drama's sake, but it's not completely unrealistic. She gave him the chance several times to tell the truth, but he continued to lie. So it's understandable that she'd be upset after that. And but in these situations and these fictional stories, people feel the need to pick sides instead of trying to understand both. She has a right to be upset about him lying, and Clark also has the right to be upset that she put herself in grave danger just to prove a point.
Right.
The real
it's like the way that
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, the way I see it, it's like on Lois's part, it's like if he puts up this mild mannered, honest, to God, like country boy thing. But if he's lying about this, like I don't, it feels like I don't really know him. I,
The,
in air quotes, referring to
you
her.
say,
It
but the
feels
problem
like
is she
mm,
doesn't really know him. They don't.
she
They
doesn't. You're
barely.
right. You're
That
right.
that's the problem with this, is that there's a side of this where people have a right to be upset about this very tired trope, but the discussion isn't even about the trope. It's just people using it as an excuse to be sexist.
Mm.
Yeah, but I'm sorry. Go ahead and
Mhm.
finish.
But yeah, I was gonna say it's like it's like a thing of it's like if he's lying about this, what else could he be lying about, et cetera, et cetera. It raises so many red flags that like I understand, but at the same time, it's like I would also be upset if someone that I assumed I was getting close with like tries to essentially out me for
Exactly.
like
That's low
their own
key
personal gain.
because
It's like
yeah, we talked about with Spider-Verse a few weeks back about how the whole hiding the secret identity, and the whole in the next episode they talk about how he feels different and all that, things like that, how it's kind of very similar to like being queer. And
yeah,
low key she was forcing this man to out himself.
right,
let
which is
that
not
man let
cool.
that man come out in his own time.
Mm.
So like the thing is, a lot of people have legitimate reasons to be upset about this. They just, like I said, use it as an excuse to be racist. Not
Right.
racist, but sexist. Why did I say racist? They're similar.
Yeah.
But yeah, whenever a woman displays emotion that conflict with the male character in these types of stories, people turn on them immediately. A similar
Right.
situation happens in Invincible that I won't spoil, but it's basically the same situation. um,
Mm.
yeah, this is a story. Stories need conflict, and sometimes that's done by leaning on very, very tired tropes. Like,
Yep.
this could have been a more nuanced conversation about how to better write these things, because there's definitely a better way to write these type of situations. I know there is,
Absolutely.
but it is what it is. It's happened, and it immediately was resolved in the next episode. So
Yeah. So it's
it
like
wasn't even worth getting upset about. And shout out to Deborah Wilson, who is voicing Amanda Waller in this, and she also voices Amanda Waller in the upcoming Suicide Squad game.
mm.
She's most famous for being on Mad TV, but she also plays
Oh, wow.
one of the main characters in Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor as well.
Ooh.
Yeah, in episode 6, the drama between the three main characters, comes to a head, because
Right.
this results in them, kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Neglecting Jimmy, and he ends
Mm.
up going on a camping trip by himself and gets kidnapped by Mansoor Mala and the Brain, who are originally Doom Patrol villains. But I like
Hmm.
this take on them. This is a case of them. See, the thing is, they're picking and choosing which villains that they want to do. They clearly have some preferred villains,
Right. Right.
because they actually have this very interesting take on these two characters who are, if I'm not mistaken, the oldest, like the longest existing queer couple in comics. Period.
Oh, wow.
Like, since their inception, they've been pretty much in a relationship, and yeah, because Doom Patrol is one of the most aggressively gay comics in history, so that makes all the sense in the world.
Wanna be.
Yeah, so like they have this very interesting take on these two villains, but almost every other villain, is not nearly as interesting. It's weird. So yeah, they also, so Lois and Clark are getting chased by these robots. There's like cluster of robots in this episode, and Mansoor Mala calls them Omax, and
Mm-hmm.
I hate that. This is another case of them changing a character that in a way that I'm not a fan of. So Omac has been like nano machines before, but
Mm-hmm.
I can't say I'm 100% sure about this, but Omac I don't think has ever been like an actual like robot. Omac is related to a robot that transforms a person to Omac, but I don't know if Omac's necessarily ever just straight up been a robot. So I
Right.
thought that was weird, and I also thought that this is another case where immediately I, like in the moment, thought of a much more interesting use of the character than I feel like the show did, which is in the comics, Omac is a man named Buddy Blank who can transform into a superhuman whenever a satellite called Brother Eye blasts him with energy. He becomes Omac, and he works
Mm-hmm.
for the U.S. government in the comics. Like, these robots are from the government, tracking down Mansoor Mala, Brain, and Superman, and all that. And
Right.
this could have been a very interesting story arc where Omac, who essentially is just, his powers are, very basic, super strength and all that. So he would be able to go toe to toe with Superman most likely in this story.
Right.
So they could have created this person, this superhuman, to, counter Superman because they think he's a threat. But the thing about Omek is that he's working for the government and he thinks he's doing the right thing, but he eventually realizes he's not.
Right.
And that could have been a very interesting story arc of having this dude who eventually realizes no. After he fights Superman a couple times, he realized that Superman is like prioritizing saving other people, and maybe they have to team up to fight another bad guy. And he goes, "Wait, Superman's not a bad person. Why would I fight Superman?" Right. And then he either probably like gets his powers taken away and thrown in jail because he's like going against the government or whatever. And later on, Superman like saves him and they team up again. Like that could have been a really interesting arc with Omek. And the thing that a lot of people are saying about this show is that there's the potential of them having these characters become more similar to comic book counterparts later down the line. And that is a trope that people don't like. And it happens a lot. It's the biggest example is Spider-Man recently. In the EMCU, Spider-Man has had to slowly become the broke, decrepit, down on his luck, in the dirt man that we know and love over the course of 3 movies instead of just starting there. And it's just a tired trope of having a character have to slowly earn the character that they're supposed to be from the beginning. And I'm just not a fan of that. Honestly.
Yeah, it's not fun.
I can't even talk about the episode that made me realize how much I love this show because you haven't seen it yet. So I'll just talk about it loosely. A villain is introduced in the next episode you haven't seen yet.
Okay.
And it's another example of them changing a character to fit this show, but not so drastically that they feel like they're basically an original character. And they do such a great job with this character. This is easily one of my favorite Superman villains, quote unquote villains. He's not completely a villain, but he's more of just a funny little guy.
Funny little guy is crazy.
When you watch it, it's a completely and total. It's an accurate description of what this character is. He is just a funny little guy, and
that's my favorite kind of villain. I love funny little guys.
He just likes messing with Superman. It's great. And also there's some more progress between the relationship with Lois and Clark, and it's cute. And there's next episode is just gonna be pure positivity. This episode has just been pure negativity about my adventures with Superman. And I promise you, I like this show. There are just some baffling... I feel like they make some very baffling decisions that don't completely ruin my enjoyment of the show. But there are aspects where, like, in the most recent episode, again, not going to spoil it, Clark is fighting some villains when I go, like, man, one, why is this person here? 2, why is this person like this? Like, I'm just, like, it's hard for me to ignore it. Okay?
Right.
But I like this show. And I like the direction it's going. I'll say that much.
Okay.
But yeah, anything you have to say about these last 2 episodes? I know I've been dominating this conversation because I just had a whole bunch
you're good. You know way more about Superman than I do, so I don't mind you dominating the conversation because all the extent of the input that I can add is like, I like this. I like this show. It's making me appreciate... I will say, okay, it is making me appreciate Superman as a superhero a lot more. Because like I said, I was one of those people in the camp of, oh, he's boring because he's so strong and nothing can stop him. But in learning more about him gradually by watching through the show and then planning on reading some of the comics at some point when I get a moment to sit down and like do that. A, I'm learning more about him. B, I'm finding out that he's actually very fascinating. And C, it's just like, again, coming to appreciate him more. I would, like, when I was younger and would watch Justice League Unlimited, I would dog this man to the streets and back. I was like, I cannot stand him. But now I'm starting to appreciate what his character was in Unlimited also as well. Because it's like, oh, now I understand why he makes the decisions that he does.
Yeah, that's the thing about me, kind of, just talking about the things I don't like. Because at the same time, it's like, I'm appreciative that this is showing people how cool Superman can be. But at the same time, it's painting all of his villains in such a just boring light and making it seem like his villains suck. Either that or, as weird as it sounds, I hate that some people like... I hate that new fans like these versions of these villains because I'm like, man, you don't know how interesting they actually could be.
You're missing out!
But yeah, it's a good show. It's a fun take on the characters. The future looks bright.
Yes.
And I think it's only going to be 10 episodes. So,
ooh, wow.
It'll be over pretty soon.
Yep.
By the next episode, I think, probably.
Yeah.
So yeah, moving on to comics. I almost hit the stop recording button for some reason.
Oh no.
That would have been horrible. Yeah, so Superman Earth 1, I finally finished that up. It's a modern take on like Superman's origin. This came out a few years ago. I can't remember exactly how long. I think around 5, but it was okay. I've been reading a lot of Superman comics lately, and that was one that I've heard people talk about. It was all right. It wasn't anything special. Honestly, I think it's honestly kind of a weird take on his origin, in my opinion, because they have him be like a little too malevolent at first.
Interesting.
Where he's a little not evil, but like he's doing things that like are inadvertently getting people killed. I'm like, Superman wouldn't do that. That's
would never.
Weird. It's an okay comic. It's not one that I would necessarily recommend as like you need to check this out if you want to get into Superman. I would send you to the previous episode. Actually, there's a clip of it that I posted, so check that out and you'll hear my recommendations on some Superman comics you should check out if you like my adventure with Superman. I finished up volumes 3 and 4 of the IDW's Ninja Turtle comics after watching Meet Mayhem, just in Ninja Turtle mood, reading a lot of Ninja Turtle comics, and
right
they're so good. They're ridiculously good. There was a Ghostbusters crossover that was really fun. That was like 4 issues. Because there's a
so interesting.
Yeah, was it the Ninja Turtles were like testing this teleporter that ended up sending them to the Ghostbusters universe when it was only supposed to send them back to their hideout.
Right.
But yeah, also reading World's Finest Teen Titans, which it seems like World's Finest, which is originally a comic that was a crossover between Superman and Batman. They're meant to be like the world's finest team up.
Right.
And that comic's been around for decades, and the most recent one's been really good, and it has essentially turned into World's Finest has turned into essentially kind of like a love letter to like the golden age and silver age of comics, where they're kind of just taking these characters and looking at like the early years of these characters and writing fun, goofy stories with them that have kind of that old school style, but with a a modern spin. And they're starting to do that with other characters, and one of them is the Teen Titans. They have World's Finest Teen Titans, where they're working with the original Teen Titans team, which was originally it was Robin, Kid Flash, and Aqualad, and then eventually Wonder Girl joined, and then Speedy, Green Arrow's sidekick, joined. But this one, they add the addition of Bumblebee, which you probably know from Teen Titans cartoon. And yeah, it's been real good so far. I'm excited to see more of it. I've caught up on Spirit World, which is story about Xanthi, who died, but essentially they're like half dead, and can travel between the spirit world, the land of the dead, and the human regular world. And Batgirl was sent to the spirit world on accident, and now Xanthi is working with Constantine to try and save Batgirl. And yeah, it's been real good. The art by Haining has been real good. The action in this is great. It definitely has a lot of like manga influence in the art. And yeah, Xanthi, I think the best new DC characters for me, some of my favorites, have all been the non-binary ones. Xanthi and their powers are so cool. They take like I've said before, it's been a while since I talked about it, but they essentially take like the Chinese tradition of like making origami and sitting there on graves to kind of be sent to the spirit world and being able to transform those into actual objects. And in the last issue, they were making like pots and pans and like knives for somebody in the spirit world to use to cook or whatever. But they had they ran out of swords that they had folded up, so they just used a giant wok and like a butcher knife to fight with, and it was cool. Their powers are very interesting.
Non-binary people are just epic, and I'm not biased in saying that just because I'm non-binary.
Yeah, no,
you're not
super
cool.
But yeah, and my personal favorite is Jess Chambers Flash, who is they're unnecessarily cool. I want so much more of them. If you were to see some Jess Chambers, you should read what is it? DC Multiversity Teen Justice. Which is a universe where everybody is gender swapped. So like the Justice League are Superman, Superwoman, and all that. But Teen Justice is in that world is a team that consists of it's essentially a combination of Young Justice and the Teen Titans. So you have Aqua Girl, you have Supergirl, Robin, but Robin's a girl, and you have Kid Flash, but they're not called Kid Flash. Just is called was it Kid Quick, I think. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, and you have Wonder Boy and all that. They're all
Right, right.
gender swapped or they're non-binary. So it's a very fun story, and I mostly read it
Sounds fun.
for Jess because Jess is just great. Um,
Real, real.
so Night Terrors is a current crossover that's going and interrupting all of my good comics, but I read the first Flash tie-in issue for Night Terrors, and it was actually really good. It was focused on Barry Allen, and Daniel Bayliss draws the Flash better than anyone I've ever seen in my entire life. Actually, let me see if I can look it up. Some Daniel Bayliss art because I hate how good it is. I'm like, why aren't they drawing the Flash just in general, like right now? I'm gonna have to send it to you later. It hurts my soul how good it is. I also started reading the New Teen Titans because
Mm-hmm.
from I think literally it began in 1980. This comic book, and this is where a bunch of the not a bunch. This is where the team that is famously known from the 2003 cartoon originated. After seeing a bunch of tweets about how the 2003 Teen Titans series basically bastardizes Starfire, I
Right.
decided to delve into the comics that she was introduced in, which literally the comic opens up with her escaping slavery. Um, like Starfire is a very different character from what people think based on that 2003 show. Like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
she is not the airhead who barely knows how to speak English that she's shown to be. In fact, she sometimes kills people. She is a very hardcore character
I support
in the
women's
comics,
wrongs. No, I'm kidding.
and no, she's great. And I'm excited to read more of the New Teen Titans. It's been really good so far. Um,
Good.
but last but not least, I want to talk about Comic Drake. So I hate when people. I'll do it sometimes, but I try not to do it too much. When people like to
Mm-hmm.
comment on a video, especially a YouTube video, and start to criticize it without even knowing what the person's talking about. If it's a bigot, that's different because you know what they're going
Right.
to be talking about. There's no need to even try to watch it to figure out what they're doing and give them that type of attention.
Platform.
But
Yeah.
but this was a video from Comic Drake, who is not known to be a bad person by any means. He's just a comic book YouTuber, and people like to hate on comic book YouTubers because. So the reason people like to hate on comic book YouTubers is because they are upset at how they've affected the comic book community, which isn't the fault of those YouTubers. It's more a fault of just the people who think that they are an authority on comic books simply because they watch somebody talk about a comic book in a YouTube video.
Right.
That is not on the YouTuber. That is on the people who thought that is on the people who watched the video.
Right.
And they tend to assign the blame to those comic book YouTubers who almost always in their videos suggest, "Hey, go actually read this comic."
Right.
But Comic Drake made a video about essentially how comics can learn from manga. Let me see what the exact title is. It is Comics Need Saving, Manga's Winning Secrets. And somebody, made a tweet. Again, I should have put this in my notes, but let me see if I can find the tweet exactly. So they say, I haven't watched it yet, but I just know this is going to be the most annoying video of all time. With like Comic Drake, he's an amazing YouTuber. I don't understand why people hate on Comic Drake so much, but what he talked about is essentially how, like, I think what a lot of people were afraid he was going to say is that comic American comics should be released in the same way that manga is, which is in a way that exploits the workers and
I was about to say
has
that's
them
not sustainable at
working
all.
exactly not sustainable at all, having them working overtime all the time, and
Right.
that is the in fact he actually says the complete opposite. But a lot of people assume that for some reason that is what he was going to say when it's never been something he's ever really thought or said in any of his videos really. Instead he says American comics should like their subscription services first and foremost should be cheaper because I'm playing for
Right.
DC Universe. I forget how much it costs. I think it might be around like $7 when Shonen Jump is like $4.
Mm.
And they should offer more free comics online to pull in newcomers. They don't necessarily need to do it the same way Shonen Jump does, where they have like the first 3 chapters and the most recent 3 chapters free to read. Instead, I would say they should have like the first 3 issues free to read, but they don't necessarily need the latest 3 issues for you to read.
Right.
And they should also have some of like the tentpole comics, like the popular ones, be free so people can check out the most popular stories. And then
Mm-hmm.
once they read those, they might want to read a lot more, so they'll subscribe or they'll just go out and actually buy some comics.
Right.
Um, the he also says like the single issue model needs to stop, and instead they should just be sold in volumes that collects other related comics. Like for example, if instead of selling a single issue, which is an issue for people who don't know is the equivalent of a chapter, but the reason
Right.
comic book issues are called issues because they used to be sold separately, and they still are, but that's no longer sustainable because they cost $5 by themselves, which is as much as a subscription service for a comic book company. And
Right. It's like
for you
comic
to
books
read,
used to cost like a quarter.
yeah,
You know?
but now a single issue like 25 pages something max is $5 by itself, which is ridiculous. And instead what they should be doing is combining, like if you have a Batman comic, you have all the other Batman adjacent comics collected in one. Like you have an issue of Batman, you have an issue of Detective Comics, you have an issue of Nightwing, you have an issue of Robin, all in one volume, so that you get more bang for your buck.
Right.
And also advertise comics in movie theaters. So sometimes before a movie, and I've been seeing this a lot more in the last 2 movies I watched, minus Blue Beetle, so in Mission Impossible and Ninja Turtles. At the beginning of the movie, the director and like one of the lead actors will like thank the audience for coming to watch the movie, and essentially intro the movie, and then the movie will start. Do that, have them thank us and all that, but also shout out without necessarily shouting out the comics that might be spoilery for the movie for people who actually know comics, but shout out the
Mm-hmm.
comics that inspire the movie off top while people are sitting down and can't escape. while while they're trapped, tell them which comic books inspired this movie so that people can actually be like, okay, now that you've actually shown me this and I wasn't really expecting to see this, I'm actually check that comment out, because especially if the movie's good and they leave the movie going, man, that was really good, I want more of this, they might go read the comic.
Right.
And James Gunn proved that it works, because when he announced the slate of upcoming movies in his new DC universe, he also mentioned every comic that was inspiring every single movie that was coming out. And you know what happened? Those comics sold out.
Mm.
So it's been proven that it works if you advertise the comics alongside the movie. But DC is clearly going to be doing this going forward, I'm pretty sure, based on the way James Gunn has been doing it. Because recently he shouted out Wonder Woman Historia, which is an amazing book, and I highly suggest it. It is easily, well, it's called Wonder Woman Historia, The Amazons. Wonder Woman literally does not show up until the very end, and she's a baby. It's more about the creation of the Amazons. So
Right.
and it's not very long. So the art is just ridiculously good. So if you want to get into Wonder Woman, this is a good place to start. It literally is about the creation of the Amazons, and then that leads into the birth of Wonder Woman. And then you can hop into whatever Wonder Woman story you want after that, or look it up and see what people suggest.
Right.
It's a perfect starting point. He just shouted it out on Twitter, and guess what? It sold out.
Mm-hmm.
Do that more. But Marvel is allergic to the comics. They literally will tell some of their directors to not read the comics. They will tell their actors, don't read the comics. They are like ashamed of the medium that is responsible for creating this lucrative universe.
Multi-billion-dollar industry.
Several movies that have breached the top 10 highest grossing movies of all time. And for some reason they're ashamed of them. It's like, bro, if it wasn't for these comic books, you would not be here. Advertise the comic books so that the people working on them can make money to keep making these comics, so that you can keep pulling from those stories to keep making these movies and keep making these billions of dollars. That's essentially
Losing money by being ham-fisted. It's insane.
Yeah, and also at the end of DC trailers nowadays, they actually will show you some of the most popular comics from that character. They did it with Blue Beetle, they did it with The Flash, they did it with Black Adam. They should keep doing that, and Marvel should start doing that. People want to get into comics, but it looks harder than it is. Like
Yeah, that's
I understand why people think getting into American comics is hard. It's not that hard, and honestly, some people put in more work avoiding it than it would take to get into it.
right.
Like,
As a person who's like who was one of those people that's like, I don't know, I don't think comics are for me. I think all the points that you brought up are like some of the biggest reasons that I've avoided American comics all this time because it's like the single issues and it's like I know where to start, but at the same time it's like I like I'll know where to start, but continuing is a little confusing to me. It's like the accessibility and all that. You know, I'm big about accessibility in
mhm.
in mediums. So like comics have never just been really been like an accessible genre to me because like I get confused. I get turned around. I'm like, where do I go from here? I know that volume one or issue one is the first one, but there's all this context that I'm missing and it makes me scared.
Yeah, I will always suggest like grabbing a volume where you can, because that way you're almost, or an omnibus, so that way you're set.
Mhm.
All the stories
Right.
right there, and you don't have to try and find which issue goes where. Usually, if there are like when you get like a volume and omnibus, usually those like tie-in comics or like things that are low key sometimes, and I hate when comics do this. It will be important to the story, but it'll be like some. It won't be included in like the actual like. It won't be like issue 25. It'll be like annual number 2, and you're like, what? And then you
What
don't,
even is this? Yeah.
and then you don't read it. So when you get to issue 26, you're like, I'm missing so much context. What is happening? But if you
All right,
get
what do we
like,
talk about?
if you get the volume, if you get like, if you read the volume or the omnibus, it'll have all of that in chronological order.
Right. Okay.
But
Okay.
also, the thing about where to go next is it's you can see it as a flaw, but it's also great is that it doesn't matter most of the time.
Yeah, that is fair.
You just go where you want. You got to lose the thought of where to go next, and of like having a very specific place to go next, and just going, now I can just hop to whatever comic I want.
Right.
Instead of
Let's
having to.
explore.
Exactly. But yeah, that's essentially what Common Drake was saying. And people, I feel like, didn't watch the video, made assumptions. Watch the video. It's a good video. Um, Moving on to TV and film.
Yay.
So I saw Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
in anticipation for this movie, I binged the entire franchise, all 6 movies, all 6 2-hour-and-a-half movies.
Oh, wow.
And these movies are always exhilarating and tense. These movies are so fun. I just love me a good spy movie. Like I've been not rewatching, but watching for the first time. I'm going through all of the James Bond movies. Started from
Hmm.
the beginning, and I saw the first 2, and I watched like half of the third one, but I don't know. When I be watching movies, sometimes I just get sleepy, so I started falling asleep on it. I gotta finish that. I'm trying
Real, real.
I'm trying my best to finish it, but like the internet, like it's just it's on Prime. It goes back and forth between being like on Prime and also being
Hmm.
on Prime if you pay $5. So
Ah,
I
which
just,
I never understood that. I was trying to watch. What was I trying to watch? It was something on Prime Video that I was trying to
well, Prime
watch, and it was
Video
free.
is
Ah.
like Prime Video is just one of the sources of being able to like buy movies digitally.
Oh, I see. I see. I
So they have
see.
things that are actually a part of the subscription service, and then they have things that are like kind of like buying movies on YouTube, but it's on Amazon.
Stupid. I don't like that. If I'm paying for a subscription service, give me all of it
Well,
included with the subscription.
some of it isn't like it's not part of the subscription service. It's like Amazon is just a company that sells things, so
Ah, makes
they
sense. Makes
also
sense. Yeah.
sell movies. Um, but yeah, a lot of people say that Ghost Protocol, the fourth one, is the best one. I disagree completely. The one after that,
Ooh.
Mission Impossible 5, Rogue Nation, is way better because Rebecca Ferguson is in it, and she's great. She elevates that movie so much. Rogue Nation is easily the best one so far. Fallout's
Mm.
good. I like Fallout a lot, but after watching Rogue Nation and watching Fallout and watching them side by side, I'm like, I like Rogue Nation the best of all of them so far. It's real good.
Real. Real.
Um, but yeah, I also saw Blue Beetle. And it was a breath of fresh air for DC movies because it was good. Um, it stands on its own without any like major references to a connected universe, and just
Hmm.
focuses on Jaime and his family. And that also makes it easy to potentially slide into the new DC universe if they decide to do that.
Right.
But it honestly made me want to see more of the second Blue Beetle, which the Blue Beetle in this movie, Jaime Reyes, is the third Blue Beetle. I was introduced to Blue Beetle through Batman: The Brave and the Bold, and
Mm-hmm.
he also shows up in Young Justice, and he's a cool character. Has this thing called the Scarab that connects itself to his spine, and essentially,
Ooh.
he has this. It creates this suit of armor around him. He's kind of like Iron Man, but it's an alien parasite on his back, where like
Interesting.
he can create like blasters in his arms and like make weapons and stuff like that. It's cool.
Hmm.
And of course he can fly.
Right.
Be weird if they
He's a
could.
beetle.
Right. And he has a great design, and oh my god, does he look good in the movie? Have you like seen what the costume looks like in a movie? Like
I have.
it looks incredible and it's practical.
Hmm.
It's so good. I every time it showed up on the screen, I was just awestruck because most of it's practical except for the tiny parts where like his arms transform into a gun or something like that. And like
Right.
the director said that they tried to use practical effects as often as they could. Um,
That's nice. That's really exciting to hear, actually.
yeah, it was just a fun movie about family, you know. And
Yeah.
some people have said on Twitter like, some people said how Latinx people have been wanting their Black Panther. This is it.
Yeah.
This is the Latino Black Panther. Go watch it. It's a good movie. But like I said, it makes me want to see more of the second Blue Beetle, who is Ted Cord, because his tech is cool. Because a part of the story is that he's missing, and the scarab was under his possession because his mentor used to own the scarab, and it was on his spine, and when he died, he gave it to Ted, and Ted it just wouldn't he wasn't compatible with it, so he couldn't use it. So instead, he built technology to be a superhero, and all his tech is really cool. And
Ooh.
I just want the next movie to be him looking for Ted Cord, and then for it to be a fun story of him adventuring with him. And the problem is that James Gunn might be saving Ted Cord for Booster Gold because they're best friends and they had a whole comic book line together called Blue and Gold. So he's probably not gonna have Ted Cord show up until that. And if he does, I hope it's a prequel that happens like before the Blue Beetle movie. That way,
Hmm.
they can still do the storyline of Ted Cord is missing, and Blue Beetle, the current Blue Beetle, has to go find him. But yeah, it was a fun movie. I definitely suggest checking it out.
Ooh, bet.
But yeah, that's all I got for TV and film. Let's move on to video games. So there was a trailer for Dead by Daylight for Ellen Ripley as a survivor and the Xenomorph as a killer from Aliens,
Hmm.
which was so random to me because I don't know. A it's a giant alien, and I know I just didn't expect them to add something like that into this game.
Yeah.
It,
I
it,
mean, if they added Nick Cage at this point, I'm like that they'll add anything.
yeah, but Nick Cage is like a survivor. He just runs around and crouches and fixes generators. They added
Fair, fair, fair.
a whole alien, a whole xenomorph. Now I'm like, okay, well, now you've got to add the predator. I'm sorry, but now you're
Right.
contractually obligated to add the predator. You can't have the alien and not add the predator.
Right.
Oh, predator gonna be trash because he's gonna turn invisible and just sneak up behind you and stab you in the throat. It's gonna suck.
I have friends that play Dead by Daylight, and I just can't. I can't. I'm seeing their reactions to the alien being added. One of them is an Alien fan and loves
I love
the
Alien.
series. The others are just like, I am not excited to see how he plays, and I'm like, ooh, I don't play Dead by Daylight, but I can't wait to be in a Discord call with them and have them be screaming at at the screen, not out of horror, but out of frustration. It's music to my ears.
Yeah. So Rockstar have re-released Red Dead Redemption 2 on modern consoles,
Ooh, really?
and yeah, but it's $50 now. Let's
Uh,
and not only is it $50, it's just a re-release. It's not a remaster. It's not a remake.
mm,
It's just a re-release of the game, and it's $50.
mm. See, I was just like, I've been in my cowboy era lately. I don't know why. I'm like, cowboys are so cool right now. And I was thinking about getting into Red Dead Redemption because everyone's like, Red Dead Redemption's so cool, and it's like I like
It is
cowboys
really
right
cool.
now.
Let me tell you what.
And yeah, okay,
Let me tell you what.
okay,
I love Red Dead Redemption.
right.
If you haven't played it before, that's the thing, because when you do the math, it kind of makes sense when
Hmm.
you realize games cost $70 now. This is $20 cheaper than $70.
Right.
So
But
if
it's
games were
not a
still
remaster.
yeah,
That's the
if
thing.
games were still $60, this would probably be $40.
Yeah.
Um, and if it was $40 now, I think people would be a little bit more lenient. And you're right, it's
Hmm.
not a remaster. If it was a remaster, I think people would be a little bit more okay with $50. but it's not a remaster. It's just a re-release. At least make it like 40 or 30. Like
Right.
50? Are you kidding me?
It's absurd.
That's ridiculous. So like I definitely would highly suggest whenever it goes on sale for you to pick this game up. Red Dead
Yeah,
Redemption is great.
absolutely.
And eventually the second one is easily it's so good. It's ridiculously good. I love that game so much. Uh it's
I've heard a lot of good things about it.
I feel like what you have to this is the thing about the game that makes it hit or miss for some people is that it is you are in the Wild West. It is sometimes it can be very slow and methodical in the way that the gameplay goes. Like
Right.
I think I didn't find this out until after I beat the game that there's a fast travel system.
Hmm.
And I don't even know how hard or easy it is to unlock because in my second playthrough I unlocked it pretty early. I think. But like yeah, there's gonna be a lot of just riding your horse across.
And I'm okay with that.
Across the
Like,
beautiful fields. Like it is a pretty game. It is a
Right, right.
good looking game. That it's so good.
it's like I've never had a problem with like slow for the most part. I've never really had a problem with slow games because one of my favorite kinds of games is management sims, which are always very, very slow. And so like, I like I'm a very stop and smell the roses kind of person, especially with like big sprawling open worlds because it's like I want to see everything. I'm going to explore every nook and cranny. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, this is one of those open worlds that for me personally it really takes advantage of its openness and isn't just big for the sake of being big like a lot of Ubisoft open world games are.
Right,
Um,
right.
yeah, it's a fun game. I often for like after I beat the game, I think I've said this on the podcast before. Like, you can't take me to a casino because in that game, I will sit down and in game play poker for like an hour.
Oh, real.
And if I went to a casino in real life, I would lose all my money just playing poker.
Oh, oh no.
Because poker is so fun for no reason. I enjoy poker. Um,
Yeah, I'll put it on my Switch wish list and probably pick it up whenever it goes on sale. Now I've got an excuse. So that Metal Gear, I've got so many games I need to play.
yeah. So
Little time.
Evo was a few weeks ago, and at Evo, Street Fighter showed off Aki. They revealed Aki in a cutscene that takes place in the World Tour mode, and like every Street Fighter character, she has an incredible design. So those pictures I sent in Discord, that's Aki.
Right. Got you. I
and
love her design.
yes, she
This
looks
goes insane.
she's very snaky, and poison is going to be her thing.
Right.
And
And that comes across very clearly in her design without without you telling me that, I'd probably I picked up on a sort of yeah.
yeah, I don't know if I think I did send the trailer a while back, but yeah, she looks fun, and I'm excited to see what her gameplay is like. Naturally, we also saw a trailer for Mortal Kombat 1 again. The baddest
Right.
trailer, easily the best trailer for any character so far.
Ooh.
They revealed Reptile. They revealed Reptile as a playable character. Ashra, who is another one of those characters that hasn't showed up since the Mortal Kombat that came out like 10 years ago or over 10 years ago.
Wow.
Where every single character that existed at the time was in. Essentially the Smash Ultimate version of Mortal Kombat back in like the early 2000s. So a bunch of returning characters from what they call the 3D era, which is when Mortal Kombat first started, going into 3D. And also,
Right.
that was back when Mortal Kombat, they went from being, pixelated and a 2D fighter to an arena fighter like Tekken, where it's like you can actually go around in a circle rather than going side to side. And it was for some people it was a weird era for Mortal Kombat, but it yielded a bunch of interesting characters, and they're finally bringing a lot of them back. What is it? Havoc is also a playable character, and they also showed off. Who did they show off? Serena as a cameo, and Serena looks so cool that I'm like, this should just be a character. She has like this demon form that looks really cool. She just looks cool. Havoc is like this rotted corpse of a person who's falling apart and literally rips his arm off and beats you with it.
That's so funny to me.
And his super, he like punches you until his arms like come apart and only his bones are sticking out, and then he stabs you with them. It is visceral. I love Mortal Kombat. It's so violent.
Great.
But
great.
yeah, Reptile has easily the best ninja design in Mortal Kombat ever. because
Mm.
it's just so simple and clean. He has a hood, he has a cloth mask. I'm tired of the metal mask that they keep giving to ninjas. Just give them a regular mask, my guy. They don't need
Right.
metal on their mask. He just looks so good, and they made a change to his character that a lot of people are wanting for a long time. So originally he looked like a human, and then
Mm.
eventually they changed it to where he's like a lizard person because his name's Reptile, and he shoots like venom out of his face. But a lot
Right.
of people weren't a fan of his design when he was a lizard person. So now in this
Mm.
game, he is a lizard person who has the ability to transform into a human, and because of that,
Oh.
he was ostracized by his people and kind of like kicked out of his his clan, for lack of a better term. And
Mm.
yeah, so now he is this very handsome man and also a giant lizard monster.
Ooh.
So he has the best design he's ever
Twitter's
had.
gonna have a field day with him.
Oh yeah, they did. There's there's a lot of people going like, yeah, I like him when he's a human, but when he's a lizard though, you know how people are.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep. 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 Yep.
but yeah, he also looks fun to play. Loki, he looks so good that he might be like my secondary character after Reptile. But after Reptile, I mean after Sub Zero. um, but also there was a combat cast where they will show off like how characters work in a live stream,
Mm.
and they showed off Smoke,
Ooh.
Ashura, and Geras. And Smoke looks really good. Smoke might be a character that I play as well. The characters I play is probably gonna be Sub Zero, Reptile, and Smoke. They look really good.
Mm.
But also this weekend that we're recording this, is the beta access for the game, which comes out.
Ooh.
It only comes out in a month. It is crazy how soon that game's coming out. They announced
Really?
it. They only announced it a few months ago. It's coming out
That's
the 19th of September.
that feels really insane to me.
Yeah, it's coming out very soon. I'm very excited to play story mode. But yeah, I messed around with some characters. I think the only characters in it are Sub Zero, Katana,
Mm.
Kenshi,
Mm-hmm.
Liu Kang, Johnny Cage, and Li Mei. And I've played all of them a little bit in the tower. I haven't played online because I don't think I'm ready because they don't have a training mode in the beta. So
Ah.
the only place I have to train is in the tower, which they're attacking me while I'm trying to train. So I'm like, I can't train if you're attacking me. I need a proper training mode where this person just sits and lets me beat them up.
Right.
Um,
Because it's like if I go play online, I'm gonna get my butt
and
kicked
I'm not ready for
several
that right
times
now.
over.
Okay, if I'm gonna get my butt
Yeah.
kicked, I want to
Yeah.
get my butt kicked when I'm prepared.
Right. In a fair and orderly manner.
But yeah, you could do air combos, but like I said, because I couldn't practice too much.
Mm.
Wasn't able to get in a lot of the air combos. What I like about Mortal Kombat is, at least in this one, I'm starting to like I'm being able to figure out the combos without having to like look up some YouTube tutorial, which is really cool.
Right.
Because I'm a
I,
very
I have to ask, does Mortal Kombat use like fight stick controls like Tekken or because I don't play many fighting games. So does it use fight stick controls or does it just use like I don't know, whatever is not fight stick controls? You can tell I don't know anything.
yeah. Well, I would say all fighting games can be played using a regular controller, which in the fighting game
Mhm.
community they call controllers game pads, and then they call the fight sticks. And
Right.
any fighting game can be played with either one. Like they aren't
Mm.
really specified to either, and it really just comes down to personal preference, depending on if a person
Gotcha.
prefers to play on controller or a game or a fight pad or fight
Mhm.
stick. um,
Gotcha. Okay.
so yeah, it doesn't matter either way.
Cool.
But yeah, so last night I was
Mhm.
surprised with a notification from IGN for a hands-on preview of Black Myth Wukong,
Ooh.
which is the Souls-like by Chinese developer Game Science, where you play as the legendary Monkey King.
Sun Wukong.
And for the past 3 years, they've given us some trailers and extended gameplay presentations, like 13-minute long gameplay presentations. Every year, they've given us at least one. And now and I wasn't convinced this game was real. It looked way too good to be true. It's gorgeous visually, and the animations are so smooth. I'm like, this game doesn't exist. Like, this game is never going to release. But now that I've seen actual gameplay and have heard from someone who's actually gotten their hand on a controller and played the game, I think I almost believe that it exists.
Almost is crazy.
And if it does, it's my most anticipated game of next year because it's supposed to release summer 2024 for PC and next gen consoles. And what makes this game different from other Souls-likes for me is that its combat it feels more like a character action game. And and something the reviewer mentions in that I think Ryan McCaffrey in that IGN review mentions is that In most Souls, like, you are usually holding the weapon at the end. You know, you're usually using like a sword or a hammer or like an axe or something like that. But in this,
Right.
you're using a staff, which is
Ooh.
there's pole arms in like Souls games, but like he said in that video, you're usually poking with them. And this, you're using it like, this is made by a
Like
Chinese
a
studio,
staff.
so you're using it
Yeah.
like some like they do in like Chinese martial arts. So you're spinning it around, you're holding it in the middle sometimes, and there are different stances. And this is was it Ryuji Rumi Bang or something like that is the name of the staff, and it
Mm.
it can extend. That's the whole thing about the
Ooh.
staff. So there's a mode specifically, like a stance where it specifically is for extending the staff, and there's this
Mm.
really cool move where you can stand on a staff and stretch it up into the air, and then like flip it around and then bring it down on top of an enemy. It looks so good. Oh my god,
It
this
sounds,
this game looks
man.
incredible. Like,
That's like for a Souls like that. That's so novel. I'm excited to play it now too. This is my first hearing of
yeah,
this.
and like I've said before, I'm big on boss fights, and the boss fights
Right.
in this game look incredible. They look so good. I'm excited for this game. It looks ridiculously good. Yeah, you should check out that preview. I sent it in the actually no, I sent a trailer for like one of the old trailers, one of the shorter ones in the
Right.
in
Right.
Discord. But you can check out that IGN preview. It's
Yeah,
really
I'm gonna
good.
check out that preview for sure.
It looks fun. Yeah, I'm excited. Last but not least, um, the last Ronin. So a new TMNT game developed by Black Forest Game was teased at THQ Nordic's Summer Showcase and announced to be
Ooh.
officially in development. This, of course, was a game that we've talked about on this podcast before.
We have.
It was rumored that a AAA Last Ronin game, taking inspiration from the recent God of War games, was in development, and now it's been officially announced.
Yay!
Last Ronin is a story that takes place in a future battle-ravaged New York where a lone surviving turtle embarks on a seemingly hopeless mission seeking justice for the family he lost. So all the other turtles are dead. There's just one turtle
It's kind of
remaining.
dark for Ninja Turtles.
I know which turtle it is, but I'm not going to spoil it. And also, they could change it.
Okay.
They could change it
Okay.
for the sake of keeping it a surprise for people who've read the comic.
Right.
I haven't read that comic yet. I just didn't care at
You
the
just
time.
know.
So I just
Hmm.
found out who it was, and it doesn't really ruin the story for me. When I read it, I'm still gonna enjoy it, even know who it is. But yeah, before we discussed how, in game we'll probably have like we'll probably have all the turtles' weapons. Well, you 100% will, because the character in the last run has all their weapons, and you'll be able to like switch between each weapon.
Mm.
And there will probably be like story missions that are like flashbacks, where you play as each individual turtle like before they died or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, this is gonna be a dark story.
Yeah.
This is a dark story to be like the first AAA Ninja Turtle game.
I'm for it though. I'm all for it.
But yeah, I really want a 4-player co-op Ninja Turtle game bad.
Just play Turtles in Time. No, I'm kidding.
Well,
That game is fantastic though.
I've been playing Shredder's Revenge, and the DLC comes out on the 31st. I'm gonna play that with my brother.
Ooh.
Shredder's Revenge is so fun. I was playing it. So when my friends came over a few weeks ago, we started playing that on, I think, the hardest difficulty, and we were getting destroyed.
Yeah.
And like I'm sitting there like, man, it turns out hard is actually hard. We were struggling. It was a good time though.
Sounds like a good time.
But yeah, I'm excited to play the DLC. They're adding uh Karai and the rabbit dude whose name I can never remember
Ooh.
as playable characters. Because in the game, it's the Ninja Turtles, of course, Master Splinter,
Hmm.
and April, and then after you beat the game, you unlock Casey.
Ah.
And then in the DLC, they're adding Karai, which is, depending on continuity, she's either the daughter of Shredder or his granddaughter. And the rabbit dude whose name I can never remember. There's this rabbit samurai in the Ninja Turtles universe who's really cool. And I haven't had a lot of experiences with him. I've only seen clips of him in the 2012 cartoon, and I know he shows up in the current comic that I'm reading, but I haven't gotten to that point yet. So I know nothing about him except for how he looks. He's a white rabbit. He's a mutant, of course. He's a white mutant rabbit and like blue gi with a samurai sword, and he's a samurai.
Right. Right.
And he looks cool, and I want to play him. I usually play as Leo. He's He's my favorite turtle. He's great. I'll talk about turtles a lot in this podcast. I love Ninja Turtles. But yeah, I'm excited for this game. I hope it's good. But again,
Sounds exciting. Yeah.
give me 4-player co-op, open world Ninja Turtle game. Like, who is it? Gotham Knights. Haven't played it, but I heard it's not great. And I don't really want to play it. But I feel like
Right.
that idea is solid, and I think that that team, which was the team that worked on Batman Arkham Origins, which is a underrated game, overhated. I don't even understand why people don't like it. It's a good game.
Mm-hmm.
They could take that formula and they could either make, well, they should take that formula and make a Teen Titans game, but also a Ninja Turtle game.
Ooh.
A Ninja Turtle game in that style would be really fun. But that's all I have.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have any
So I've,
video game stuff.
let me think if I have any news to announce. I feel like I saw something get announced recently. I can't remember what it was. I don't remember. So I think I'm good. I think that's all I've got.
Okay. Well, you know, my ads are below me. My Aiara's at below them, and the Muska's at below that. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel if you want to see more storytelling content, and to click the notification bell so that you're notified when we post. Peace.
See ya.